Going back now to one of our top stories, this is the Gauteng Police Commissioner who released the latest crime statistics earlier today.
Drops in the number of rapes, sexual assaults and contact sexual offences, but attempted sexual crimes increased by 28.1%. Also concerns over riders being robbed through e-hailing services and online scams.
People are easily robbed through the online shopping scams and e-hailing services. The unsuspecting buyers or sellers are lured to a location where after they are hijacked, robbed by a group of suspects, or in some incidents, the victim will make use of the e-hailing transport whereby they will be robbed. In this instance, both the e-hailing driver and the commuters are targets.
Nelson Pillay is the spokesperson of the Gauteng Police Board. Nelson, good evening rather. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Firstly, let's just take a look at the work that is being done, particularly within the community through community policing forums to try to respond to just the issue of crime.
Yeah, good evening and good evening to your listeners. There's a lot of work happening at the moment. As you're aware, the Community Police Forum is mandated by the SAPS Act 68 of 1995. And our role is primarily to represent the community in terms of community policing needs and work with the police. It's largely focused in two areas, enablement and oversight. We are concerned about the crime. We're concerned about the increase in crime. Yes, in certain categories, I'm not going to talk to the stats because the police will talk to their own stats. But in terms of our analysis, we are concerned about some of the serious crimes, especially murder. Some of the categories that show green and red are often misleading because it's based on a police financial year in terms of the changes. But what we find is a lot of the kind of GBV crimes don't get reported, and it's often not included in the statistics.
Mm-hmm. What are you finding that community policing forums are also having to do? And I'm asking this from a resource question. Obviously, there are constraints in terms of what they can do from a legislative point of view, and also the amount of money that they have. So generally, what are you finding the responses to be?
Yeah, so we really struggle with resources. We find resources are challenged at station level, at district level, at provincial level. We do get help from time to time from the Department of Community Safety, also plays an oversight role on the CPF. We do get some resource assistance from the police from time to time, but it's also difficult because we are an oversight body, and we are a non-profit organization, so we largely depend on community donations and from businesses and residents associations, etc. But it varies. But I can tell you, on average, most CPFs really struggle with resourcing. We're a volunteer organization. We use our own resources, our own vehicles, our own kind of telecommunications, equipment, etc. But there are conversations happening at a national level, both national CPF and the national police, in terms of how better to equip the CPF. But I think these are early stages. In some areas, for example, if we take Alex and Soweto, a lot of our CPF members in those areas struggle with, basic cell phones, radio communication, etc. So in terms of our role being the eyes and ears of the community and the police, I don't believe we are as effective as we can be. We can volunteer time and certain resources, but we do have a lot of constraints in terms of being effective.
Listen, when I think back to the national crime statistics that were released on Q1, they showed an increase in vigilantism and mob justice. And that, of course, speaks to the frustration that, we see in communities. I'm not sure what it looks like aggregated for Gauteng, but you know, the general frustration that residents have with the slow pace at which crime is responded to, sometimes the lack of response. How are you seeing that manifest in communities in this province?
Yeah, so we don't have statistics or real data in terms of, the growth of vigilantism, and we haven't done, real research, but we are seeing spikes of vigilantism in many areas. As a CPF, we don't support that type of initiative because we have to deal with criminals in a law-abiding manner. But we also empathize with the communities that are being terrorized by crime. And, I think in many of these communities, hijackings, cell phone robberies, kidnappings involving ATM withdrawals, etc., are rife. And, we see, if I look at one of the stats, Trio appears to be green, but we know in certain communities, there's a 10 to 30% year-on-year increase in some of those categories of crimes. So, in short, we don't support any of those vigilante groups. When we don't believe committing a crime to fight crime is a solution. We really have to make sure that the CPF is well-resourced, the police are well-resourced, and the communities work with law enforcement so that we can bring these culprits to book.
All right. I think the important point that you're also making there, Nelson, is the fact that once you actually begin to take a closer look at those numbers, and not just the overall provincial numbers, Stephen, it paints a picture of what's happening in different communities, and that's where the real story of crime and how it impacts us is.